It's the real ones. Howard Beck, senior writer at The Ringer, back from a brief mini vacation. With me is a guy who once dropped 25 points for the Yakima Sun Kings in a 105-83 rout of the Sioux Falls Skyforce, Raja Bell.
Okay. Hey, Howard, that's why you're a pro, because I fully intended to come on here and give you a lot of shit about the intros I was getting in your absence, and then here you go.
I can't let Pina do that to me. I can't let Pina just one-up me, two-up me, like just hitting the fans, hitting the listeners, hitting you with all these like deep dives into the Raja Bell canon. I can't let Pina do that to me on this show. Like, thank you, Michael Pina.
Thunder stolen.
Thank you, Michael Pina, for subbing in for the last few shows. Raja, this wasn't even just that. Like, I listened and I was like, ooh, that's a good get. It's a good shtick. And then I had multiple people on Blue Sky basically coming at me going like, hey man, Pina's done pretty well with you out. You know, those stats with those Raja stats have been pretty fun. What you gonna do, Beck?
Oh my God. You got Wally pipped.
Almost.
Man, well, welcome back, dude. We missed you. It was a great intro, dude. You stole I came in, I had a whole thing I was going to do. And you threw me right into ad-lib mode, dude. You took my thunder right away. Good for you.
Appreciate it. Before we jump in, real quick again, thank you, Michael Pina, for subbing in for the last few shows. Thank you to producer Ashley, who's with us here today, subbing in for producer Cliff. Welcome, Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
We are on our normal schedule this week. We're back on Friday. We are off next Tuesday, Christmas Eve, but then back on December 27th, Friday after Christmas. And folks, we're just weeks away from the return of Logan Murdoch. So that's exciting. Early January, he will be back in this chair. The NBA Cup final is just hours away, Raja. Bucks, Thunder. I think this is actually a great outcome for the NBA. Like, I get it. No LeBron or Steph or Kevin Durant. Everybody is always saying, that they need these guys for a tentpole event. I actually think this is a great outcome in that we have a legit young contender in the Thunder with a lot of great up-and-coming players. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is already a perennial MVP. He's no longer up-and-coming. He's just here. And they're playing against a recent-ish champion in the Bucks and a recent-ish former two-time MVP in Giannis, who's playing like an MVP again. I'm actually excited for this game. I must stipulate, because I'm me, I would be excited for this game regardless of whether there was a cup on the line. It's just going to be a good matchup. But I think this is a good outcome tonight, Raj.
I do too. I agree with you. Last week when we were talking about it, we kind of touched on I touched on who winning this championship would mean the most to out of the four teams that were in the semis. And I had come to the conclusion that it would mean more to Atlanta and Houston. But, you know, I too love the matchup, and I'd make a case for it meaning a lot for Milwaukee. Just from where they've been the last year or so, the experiment with kind of Giannis and Dame, it didn't really bear fruit last year. Chris Middleton's back in the mix. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but I think at this point in the season, there's probably a little of that going around their locker room too, just trying to figure out, even in the front offices, like, what are we? What is the ceiling for this? You know, having the success in the tournament and getting a big win, that can be helpful. It could be helpful for morale. It could be helpful for projection down the line. Like, it could be helpful for stability. I think it could mean something to them, honestly. I don't know that they win it. We'll get into that, but I love the matchup, and I think I'm taking a little bit of a change of path from like who it could mean something for. I think it could mean something for Milwaukee in a way that I didn't see last week.
The conventional wisdom would be that a team like the Thunder, young, just starting to break through, led the West. I think maybe led the league, led the West actually, and in wins last season. Widely favored to win the West this season. It's not like they're not on the radar already anyway, but they haven't won anything yet, and they are very young. And so conventional wisdom would be the Thunder's the team that needs this, like as a little stepping stone. Just like the Pacers even making it to the Cup final a year ago, we saw, that's a good moment for them and a learning experience, pressure games, little different stakes than a normal regular season game. And maybe that did pay dividends in their deep playoff run last spring. So the Thunder should be the answer here. But I think I'm with you on this. Like, I think the Bucks almost need this more in a way. It's been such a wild ride the last couple of seasons, coaching changes and injuries and just a lot of doubts. And then, multiple rounds of speculation about what it means for Giannis's future and does he hang on there? And like, again, I will be the first to say, I don't think the NBA Cup as a new award, I don't think it means that much ultimately. But I do think to the extent that teams mark their seasons based on just certain, just certain markers, just certain, whether it's your record after 10 games or 20 games, or whether it's how your new players are clicking with it, just winning something. We've created the stakes. We created this out of thin air, but once it's there, you want to win it. Giannis clearly wants to win it. And this is a team that they've now won, I think, 12 of their last 15 after 2-8 or whatever they started. We were all burying them. And I feel like they're back. And like this would kind of like certify that, maybe even just psychologically for themselves.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm watching a high school game last night. There's a team that was playing my son's team. My son was out with a thigh bruise, but this team was a really good, older, physical team from Miami. They were supposed to win, even if my son was in the game, but my son's team was hanging around. Like they were playing them well. They were into the fourth quarter. This was a game, and it was a game all the way till about the 4-minute point in the fourth quarter where a timeout took place, and then this older, more physical team just came out and had a lock-in moment, and they ran away with the last 4 minutes of the game. And I use that as a comparison to like an NBA team. That happens from game to game in a game, but it also happens throughout the course of a season. And you don't when you're going to have that kind of crystallizing moment, and you don't know what that moment is going to necessarily look like, what it's going to be. But you can have that moment where, man, we all kind of thought that we could. Maybe we all didn't like definitively buy into that, and we weren't absolutely sure. And it could be a cup victory that does that for a team like the Bucks. You just don't know. And so for a team like them, for all the reasons you just expressed, like getting a win, the more moments you have like that, the more opportunity you have to fall into that moment of crystallization that like we could do this.
Yeah. The way they've played for the last month or so, the Bucks kind of look like the contenders that we would have penciled them in as based on their talent and accomplishments alone before they get off to that horrendous start. And so we're now at that point where it's okay. Were we hasty to react to the whatever, like I say, I think 2-8 start? Were we too hasty to react then and bury them? Do we now need to be careful about saying, okay, they're back, cool, awesome, this looks great, they're contenders again? Where are you on your just a general assessment of the Bucks? And again, it's still mid-December. There's a lot of season to play yet, and we're a couple months out from the trade deadline. A lot will change. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show too. Where are you on the Bucks with respect to the Celtics obviously being defending champs, the Cavaliers having just an absolutely incredible season? I saw them here in Brooklyn last night. The Knicks are in the mix there. The Sixers are still trying to pick themselves up off the mat. I'm not burying them yet. Where are the Bucks in all this?
I think I still would have them in a tier probably below, maybe a tier below Boston and Cleveland in terms of my belief right now. Like in the Eastern Conference, I talk a lot of times on this show about having guys in the playoffs that we can give this ball to and get out of the way and get us a bucket. They've got that. They've got two dudes like that. What worries me about them right now is just overall defensive chops and philosophy and what that's going to look like when you do have a piece on the floor that is going to be sought out in those type of games when we have more time to game plan for finding the mismatch, identifying it, and just kind of getting after it in Dame, and what our game plan is going to be around that and how we can fortify, the second line of defense behind him. I think that's an issue. They're sitting kind of middle of the pack right now defensively. I don't think they're prolific enough offensively to be a middle of the pack defensive team. So I like where we're going, and I can see it now in a way that I couldn't see it necessarily when they started the way they did. And we could be having another conversation in a couple weeks, Howard. But like right now, I think I have them just below that top tier of teams that I think I trust more in the Eastern Conference.
Giannis is absolutely just wrecking people. That's what inspires belief for me is like, and it's not that he ever really fell off since his MVP seasons. When you're at that height, even like a couple percentage points off on your shooting or a little bit of a dip in efficiency, a little bit of a dip in rebounding and assists. Like it sometimes looks like, oh, okay, it's not as great as his MVP years. So it's not like he ever like really slipped. He's had the postseason injuries that have really crippled them in their postseason runs. But Giannis right now is Tim Bontemps from ESPN hit me last night with the first of the MVP straw polls. So I actually had to think about it again. Like, oh God, here we go. Like, what's the pecking order right now? Like the Bucks have only recently revived themselves. So even in the context of like a 25 game sample or whatever, I don't want to overdo Giannis as a candidate because the wins always matter in my mind on the MVP race. But like Giannis is absolutely having an MVP caliber season. And if the Bucks do finish top 3 or 4 in the East, if the more recent version of them is the version, he's going to be right in there. We're going to be debating him versus SGA versus Jokic versus Tatum versus Luka, right? Like it's not like he's ever really fallen out of those discussions by a lot. But depending on where the Bucks have been in the standings, it's caused Giannis's candidacy to fluctuate. But he's killing it. He had an awesome game the other night in the semis over the weekend. That was a great game.
Yeah. I think that Giannis is one of those dudes that just because he's so physically dominant, I think you can take for granted what that looks like because the aesthetics aren't always the same level of highlight as somebody out there handling the ball all the time and hitting the big three with a hand in his face and falling away or crossing somebody up. But I just, size, strength, and just efficiency from a guy. I mean, those are the things that become hard to guard if you're a defender. Like defenders can sit down and guard moves and tough contested shots. Like we'll take our chances with those. Great players are going to hit them. Sometimes I've said before, it doesn't matter what you do, they'll hit them anyway. But we feel better in those spaces, Howard. I tell my young son this: hey man, make a move and go buy a dude. Don't fuck around. No need to go into your bag. Like we know you got a bunch of moves, but the more you make moves, the more that defender is sitting down thinking he can get a piece of that. Like just go by. And Giannis plays that style of ball, which is really difficult, really, really difficult to game plan for, especially as it gets later in the season when bodies are banged up and people don't have the same level of juice because he's so big and he's so strong. But he's not going to be like, we've seen this. It's got to be his running mate. Like when they were at their best, he had a running mate doing that consistently. Dame's doing it right now, but it's got to keep up. That for me, that's always going to be, aside from the defense. And I really do believe that like they just have to continue to get like fractionally better defensively throughout the course of a season. If we're sitting here talking about like a top 3rd team defensively, I think we have some action as a Milwaukee Bucks team. But he is going to need that offensive help, and he's going to have that number 2 be a consistent weapon in a way that can support what he does. It's
interesting. This is year 2 with Dame, and granted, it's still early in the season and things will fluctuate. But at right now, Giannis is on pace for a career high in field goal attempts at 20.8 per game, which is 2 more shots per game than he was taking last year at the first season with Dame. And again, this is a 23 game sample for Giannis versus a full season. But he's also at the moment leading the league in scoring at 32.7 points a game. He's never won a scoring title and not causing any dip in everything else. He's still averaging, 6 assists, a little over 11 rebounds. And he just looks really aggressive right now. He just looks hungry. He just looks like a guy who's like kind of tired of taking the back seat to everybody for the last couple of years as they've slipped and other guys have risen. I like all that. What do you think of just the matchup tonight? The Thunder are an incredible defensive team, and they got a lot of guys to throw in Giannis's way and to try to bottle up Dame. What's the most intriguing just kind of chess match there in terms of whether it's the Thunder trying to throttle Giannis or what the Bucks are going to do to try to slow down SGA and Jalen Williams? What's got your eye?
Yeah, I think this is going to be very similar to what I was talking about in the games from last week, but it is a kind of a contrast in styles, like with what Giannis wants to do to score the ball and with what Oklahoma City's Achilles heel can be at times is just protecting that paint in that way. Like, and then their rim protection numbers are actually really good. But I mean, can you stop him in the way that you typically stop everyone else around that rim? And the Bucks as a whole, Can you keep them off of that offensive glass? Can you control your board and paint in a way that's going to let what you do offensively win the game? I think I would take OKC in the game, but I think that's the tail of the tape of the game.
And do you have a feel for, it sounded like you were hinting at this earlier. It sounds like you favor the Thunder in this?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take OKC tonight. They're just really good, man. They're really solid. Their depth, their versatility, for a lot of reasons. The caveat to that would be if you can't control that monster and he goes for a 45 and that's a punishing 45 around the rim, that could change the math. But I'm going to take OKC. Howard, you?
My head says the Thunder. My just read of watching the Bucks and Giannis, as I was saying, like watching them on Saturday, the way that they're playing, the way he's playing, like it just looks like he really wants this thing. And there's a part of me that's just swayed by the idea that the slightly more veteran team, not slightly more, they're the more veteran team, that's trying to reestablish their championship credentials. Again, I don't think winning the NBA Cup means that you're now, it doesn't change what your prospects are for next spring. It's a long way to go. I just feel like there's something there. Like there is a need, like internally there for them to feel like we're back and maybe this does it. And I hate to default to the who wants it more NBA, assessment. I think they both want it. There's just something about the look in Giannis's eye. It's swaying me right now. My head says the Thunder just based on all the obvious, right? Talent, depth, youth. They're just so hard to deal with at both ends. But yeah, I'll go contrarian.